We're back. Welcome back. Episode 2. Two fans, one Paul with myself, David Quist, and fellow GVSU Laker, Kirk Brown, aka KB. How we doing, KB?
Oh, we're doing good, Davey. How are you enjoying the last wisping moments of summer?
Up in Michigan here, the weather is getting a little crisp. It's a little cold, rainy. The last couple of days, I love it. I love the fall. It's definitely in my blood. So, a lot of things happening. A lot of fall camp talk. I watched a little bit of the Big Ten of state for state. A lot of podcasts listening. So just ready to jump in today. I know we talked a little bit back and forth this week. I know you want to start with some AP poll stuff because the AP poll is shit. So go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so it's not the fact that it's shit, it's the fact that it's impossible to do correctly.
Mm.
So the preseason poll, right, is you have everyone's opinions. And so usually when you get, I think it's like 40, 50 opinions, however many opinions it is, and you bring all those together, you hope that the consensus is somewhere close to, the correct order. If you take a jar of beans, right, and you add up everyone's guesses ahead of you and you average it, you'll probably be good because it takes out the high numbers, takes out the low numbers, you'll be about average. So that's what the AP poll tries to do. But they're not good at it. They haven't been good at it. Just last year alone, there were 10 teams that started um, the season ranked that finished in the polls ranked. So the
Yeesh.
other 15 teams were outside of the top 25. Um, I think one,
I believe
two,
Michigan State
three,
was ranked last year to
four.
start the year.
Yeah, five teams didn't receive any preseason votes at all.
Wow.
So the system is very broken in the sense that no one knows, but we assign value.
We all
That's
love
my
hype.
biggest
We all
problem with
love
it.
hype.
Yeah, I'm good with it being something that we can talk about,
Yeah.
something that the fans can talk about. But the problem is that we assign value to it. So you look at, in week 9 of the season, you're like, oh, this team had 8 top 25 wins or 5 top 25 wins, and then you actually look at who they beat, and those teams were ranked for the first 3 weeks, didn't play anyone out of conference. This isn't just a single conference, this is everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Then they play one good team, they lose, then they'll drop down to, like, let's say 25. Then they beat someone who's just average, and 4 other teams lose. So they kind of stay in that range until they lose like 3 games in a row. And what ends up happening is things get inflated. People aren't in the right spots. And even of those 10 last year, I also wanted to point this out. 7 of those 10 dropped in the polls. There were only 3 teams last year that it went up in the polls. One was Georgia, one was Michigan, the other was USC, and they only went up 2 spots. So overall, the poll doesn't do a good job, and so let's not value it as it's doing a good job. That's the big off-season criticism of the poll. It's a lot of fun, but we just can't assign value to it. The last 2 years, teams who have been unranked, so in 2022 TCU, the year before that 2021 Michigan, both teams were not in the top 25 and were playing for the college football playoff. So it's not necessarily a good predicator on where the season goes. So it's fun. Let's look at it as that, and then any other ideas you have about the poll or want to say. But I was
Uh,
just looking it over to think about that, and I kind of went down a rabbit hole, and I just was getting so frustrated looking at all the information that we kind of had. And this is not a single year issue. You can go back to a
every
lot of the
year.
polls, and
Yeah.
it
When you say no one moved up, do you mean like at the end of the year? Is that what you mean? Is that what you mean?
yeah. So the final rankings.
Yeah.
So if you take the preseason rankings and the final rankings, 3 teams went
Moved up.
up from their
Okay.
preseason ranking. Right outside in the top 25. We're only
Yeah.
looking at the top 25. Outside of
Makes
the top
sense.
25, obviously, 15 teams moved in. But out just
Yeah, I mean, I like looking at the polls. I mean, it's something to look at, gets everybody talking. Is it Texas's year again? We always hear that every freaking year since Vince Young, Colt McCoy days. Um, if it is their year, it should be. They kind of have everything working for them. But um, it just gets people talking. I kind of feel like this year's. I like when states kind of under the radar. I feel like that's kind of that year we're not ranked or anything. Um, I mean, who I was talking at the gym today with some guys, and I was thinking about who's going to be the team to beat. It's going to be Georgia, Bama. They're probably top five. So I mean, we all know the top four teams every year. Obviously, that with the playoff expanding next year, it might be maybe a little more exciting, a little more. We don't know who's going to be there. I don't know if the playoff would be good or bad, but just something to throw out there too when you're thinking about ranking teams, because we all kind of know it's always Clemson, Bama, now Georgia,
well,
etc.
it's the teams that recruit the best.
Ohio
You see
State,
that year in
yeah,
and year out. It's the blue chips They get most of the offseason hype because they have the best players in the country,
Yeah.
and then you have programs that develop. You look at who's won the national championship the last, I think it's 10 years. None of them have had a blue chip rating, so you take all their classes, what's their talent? They're all in the top 5. And you have to have that talent to compete and win at that level because in the regular season, you can win because it's a week in and week out battle. You don't have weeks and weeks to prepare and game plan.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we'll probably talk about when we talk about the season is Michigan. They've struggled in bowl games. They won their first one and then they like 0-6 since. And a big part of that is because teams aren't injured. They've had a week
Fresh.
to relax. You're not that you can prepare for what most consider a simplistic offense. They run a lot of schemes, a lot of different looks, but about the same plays every bit. And so when you have 3 weeks to prepare, 4 weeks to prepare, those things matter less. And who is actually on your roster, who is your team made up of that are dogs, that matters a lot more. You look at it. I mean, Ohio State almost beat Georgia last year, and
They probably should have until
they
Harrison
had
got
one
hurt.
absolute man. Yeah, exactly. And the same thing with Jamison Williams. When you have those absolute game-changing former five-star players, that's who wins those games when you have a week or 2 or 3 to scout teams, which is why week 1 games are usually not a great indicator on who's the better team overall because they've had so much time to prepare and like big
There's one decent game week 1. Florida or Utah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
FSU.
Yeah, I did want to say something about the poll and just in general here. In the top 5, 3 teams have new quarterbacks. So I'm really interested just to see what's going to happen. Georgia, I think it's some young guy. Michigan's got JJ.
Brock Vandergraaf, I think, or Carson Beck.
Carson Beck, I think, yeah. And then you got Ohio State's got a battle. Bama's got a battle. And then LSU has Jaden Daniels, who torched us when he was at Arizona State. I just want to throw that out there. It's something interesting what I was thinking about. I mean, you got at 7, Penn State, Drew Aller, new guy. Clemson, I'm not sure. So even we had these polls.
The same guy from last year.
But it wasn't DJ. Okay.
Replaced DJ. Yeah, DJ's at Oregon State.
Notre Dame, new quarterback. So a lot of things can change here. It could be a fun year. It could be like one of those years, I think it was like early 2000s, where there's a new team in the top 2 every week.
Was that the Missouri-Kansas year?
Yeah, that was awesome. So just throwing that out there.
Crazy.
More stuff to think about. Obviously, the poll, we just like to guess and talk. And if you're a big college football person like we are, you just kind of want to, talk. So that's what we're doing. Anything else on the AP poll? Or do you want to start jumping into schedules?
Yeah, that was about all I had to say about it. I said a lot, but we can jump into schedules, Dave. So if you want to go first, first 2 games of the season, who are they against? What are you kind of expecting?
Yes. First 2 games, we got Central Michigan at home, night game on a Friday. I'm going to do some golf before, and then a nice little tailgate. State should win. I do have some lines here. 14.5. We're 14.5 favorites. Is Central a decent MAC team? Yes. Will Michigan save the better athletes? Yes. I want to see who's our quarterback. And if they're doing a competition, you got to make a decision by that game or the next game we play, Richmond game 2. Give Nathan Carter and Berger at least 10 touches each, and even get the other 2 guys that are running backs touches. Who's our receivers? We'll see. And then can our defense shut down a middle-of-the-road MAC team? I would like this to be like a 38-7, 38-14 kind of game. Personally, we'll see though. I think we cover. I'm also high in our team. I have us over 5.5 wins total for the year, so we'll see. You'll see how I feel throughout the season. Or the schedule. I'll just cover Richmond too. They're a decent FCS team. We should, in my opinion, if you're a D1, higher level Big Ten team, you should dominate a FCS. So same as the first week, but maybe a little bit better. I don't want to see a struggle here at all. Personally, I like to see a nice 42-7 game or something like that. You need to know who your quarterback is before the next one. So if it's Kim or Hauser, the fans will know. I think the coaches will know. And when you have 2 quarterbacks, they always say you don't have one, similar to JJ and McNamara a couple years ago. So they make the decision, and probably the other guy transfers out next year, which sucks, but we'll have to see what happens. It should be easy 2-0 for us.
So this is just a little Michigan fan ribbing. MSU has seemed, even in the D'Antonio area, to really struggle in those early games. Like, they win them. They usually win them by, 2 scores, but the first half is never, dominating. Is there some concern? I mean, I looked up CMU's schedule because I was kind of wondering. They're returning a putrid offense, and they lost their best players off of a bad offense last
Hmm.
year. Their defense is probably going to be pretty good. So that kind of matches up well for you in the
Yeah.
sense that, like, hey, your defense has a lot of question marks, your offense has a lot of question marks. They'll be able to prove themselves against, a good unit on the offensive side is what you want to see, and you want to see them dominate a bad unit
Yeah.
on the defensive side. So, is there any concern there though, where they've played a lot of close games? It's a Friday night, not a typical Saturday, where it might be a little close going into the third, just based on like past precedents, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there definitely was some slow starts back D'Antonio. I remember I was at some of those games. I know Boise, even they're probably better back then than they are now with the Le'Veon Bell, Hurdle guy. There's a couple other close games I can't remember. I'm not too worried. We came out good in 21 against Northwestern. I honestly love a conference game to start the year. It really brings the intensity. I think Nebraska, Minnesota is the Thursday before us this week, so I love that. I wish we did that more state. Northwestern was cool, kind of a high school vibe down there, but I'm not too worried. And then last year, I think we had Western and then Youngstown. No, not Youngstown. Akron. And
Yeah.
and I even thought the Akron game, even though we beat them 70-14, I wasn't impressed. So it was kind of a weird game. So I would like to come out and if we run the ball down their throat the first couple of drives and score 14 nothing, 14-3, I'll be feel pretty good. I'm not too worried, but I know it can be a slow start sometimes. So if it's like that on offense, I think the fans will be a little upset. But obviously after last year, expectations might not be as high.
So I'll jump over to Michigan's start of the season. So it's wanting. There's not really any real competition. I think East Carolina didn't even open with a point line because it's like it was going to be like 38, 39 points.
Mm.
Obviously, you can bet money line on that game. But East Carolina, we talked about in the last episode. Oh, they had a pretty good season last year, but they lost their running back, their quarterback, and two receivers. So
Okay.
they're not returning. And a lot of the fan polls and stuff are like, yeah, we're gonna not be good 4-8 kind of season. UNLV might be okay. From what I've read, they have some under the radar athletes, some guys out there in Nevada. But overall, between them, I just want to see Michigan play a balanced game. You don't need to run Corum and Edwards into the ground in these games.
No.
You need to get timing in the offense. You need to hit some deep shots, and not deep shots on like, oh, we're gonna run 4 consecutive fly routes. Like, let's get a double move. Let's get some movement. Let's get some creativity in the passing concepts. Would love to see that. There's also Bowling Green after that, so it's not a huge, jump of competition in any means. Bowling Green is a middling MAC team, as we all know from the Midwest. But you just want to see kind of cohesiveness, no injuries. Defensively, it'll be interesting to see. Will Johnson is still recovering from a knee injury, or knee surgery, I apologize, that he got his knee scoped in the offseason. So he's still recovering from that reportedly. So hopefully he comes back healthy. And then that number 2 cornerback spot. And then pressure. Last year, Michigan was okay pressure-wise, but it never really came from the front 7. And, I mean, not the front 4 really at all. So kind of imposing against some lesser competition to set yourselves up for some good rushing. But other than that, it's going to be pretty middle of the road. I might even miss most of the East Carolina game. I'm going to be on my honeymoon. I'm going to try to record or watch as much of it as I can. But not super inspiring. Glad next year, as long as SEC doesn't do anything weird, we'll have some fun out of conference games. But we shall see.
Yeah. And you guys don't leave Michigan for like 3 months, I'm pretty sure.
No, we leave right after. It's the first month of the season. So the first 4 weeks, and then we immediately go to Nebraska.
Oh, my bad. But you guys have like
I
7
can
home
jump
games?
through- yeah.
That's nice.
And that's the reason why they moved the UCLA game is because they didn't want the UCLA
Money.
to have 6 and 6 because they make so much money at their home games.
Right.
And it's not profitable to play a UCLA home game and then go to them. So
Yeah.
it's one of those weird things with 9 conference games where you get kind of screwed out of the game.
Absolutely. Game 3 for state is a 5 o'clock kick, which is kind of different, but I love it. Eastern time. Number 10, Washington. We played 4 teams with 11 wins last year. 4 teams in the top 10. We have one of the hardest schedules in the country. So I'm an optimist, but this is where I'm looking at my notes here, and some of these games I'm not too sure still. When I originally did this, I had this game as a L. We're 12-point dogs. Why did I can see us winning the game too, so I'm just gonna stick to my guns of what I first wrote. I was losing, but why would we lose? Michael Penix, like I talked about in the first episode, Michael Penix just shreds our defense. He did it at Indiana. We barely won by 7. Last year, he just torched us. And I was listening to some other podcasts this week, and we had guys that shouldn't be playing and covering like first round receivers. Angelo Gross, great nickel cornerback. He's guarding a guy Plum, I think his name is going to go probably in the first round. So our D backs, our defensive backs need to be good for this game because Penix will have time and he doesn't miss against State. It seems like he torches us. Why do I think we might compete? I think our offense is going to be better. I think we can run the ball. I think our receivers are going to be better than we know. We just don't know until we see them. Kind of the same year. I'm having a lot of same vibes as 2021, where we didn't know what we were getting into. Obviously, Kenneth Walker is a certified dog, but we'll see. How we are with the running backs we got. I think it really comes down to a quarterback and defense in this one. Um, who's the guy? I mean, we need to know by then. And if it's still we don't know, then I think that'll be an issue. Do I think it's closer than 12 points? Yes. Do I want to say we win? I think we do. It's at home. I mean, it's 2 o'clock their time, which is probably nice. So it's not like a West Coast team playing a noon kick at 9 in the morning, which I've seen before. But it'll definitely be a ruckusy game. It's the first game we can sell booze in the stadium an hour before kick and 10 minutes into second half. Whoever's listening, if you're a State fan, we all know tailgating can
That's
go hard.
awesome, by the way.
So it might be kind of a
But
shit
tailgate a
show.
little softer. You can still buy $14 beers in the stadium. You don't
Yeah.
have to black out.
I think this will be a fun game. It's on Peacock, which I think is stupid, but that's the way things are now with the broadcasting deal.
Thank you. What, CBS, right? Love you
NBC,
guys.
NBC owns
Always
Peacock.
NBC.
I think this will be a fun game. I think it'll be a close game. I just don't know which way it'll go. Personally, I'm just gonna give the edge to Washington right now, even though I think we can win. I'm gonna give the edge to them because of the quarterback.
Um, One thing I've been reading up on Washington, their D line, especially at the edges, seems dangerous. Is there any concern? Young quarterback, not a lot of starts. How the edges, like, are you worried about offensive line tackle play? I think up the middle they're strong, but their edges are talked about as some of the best in the Pac-12. So, any thoughts on that, or did you know that, or what are your
I remember
thoughts?
seeing the guys come off the bus last year when we were at the stadium. So there's some big dudes. They have a lot of Hawaiian, Polynesian guys that are just probably dogs. Peyton Thorne got licked last year. I remember some hits where he got hit hard. It definitely could happen again. And if Noah Kim's in, I'll be a little worried. He is not the biggest dude. He might be slippery and elusive in the pocket. We'll see. But I wouldn't be surprised if they got some pressure. Do I think our line is deeper and better than last year? Yes, but obviously I haven't seen anybody play yet. I can see this. I can see their defense maybe getting a good handful of sacks, but I think whoever's has that quarterback needs to have quick throws, quick reads, and then the running game needs to be strong plus good running back blocking. So definitely a good question, something to worry about. But like I said last year, Thorne got laid. He got hit pretty good sometimes. So the quarterback's gonna have to take some hits and keep going.
So it seems like you're pretty optimistic about that game and the fact that like you're higher than Vegas is.
Yeah.
Definitely. If there was like one player that would like blow that game up, offensively or defensively, like who would you predict that's going to be? Because this is like one of your like marquee games of the
Yeah.
season. Like this is going to determine. Like even if you play it close, you lose by 3. Washington's top 10 team. Who do you think that guy is?
It's got to be one of the linebackers, Holiday or Winman. Has to be, in my opinion. Unless some guy on the edge is kind of. I mean, we kind of all know know the guys. Tumishi Adeleye is the guy from A&M. Maybe he pops off. He's only played 2 quarters of football since like he was 18, so I really don't know if he's ready to go. But I would probably put my money on Holiday or Winman. And then on offense, I'm going to throw out Nathan Carter. I've been hearing a lot of crazy stuff about him in scrimmages. Um, I don't know if he. I don't want to compare him to Kenneth Walker, but with the transfer and all that stuff, I think he can be not as good as
He
him.
did it last year with Jalen Berger and
Berger was meh.
whoever yeah. So I mean, it's you have to, right? You have to be
Yeah,
that
I
optimistic
think
for all
Carter. I think
all
Nathan Carter can take over a game if needed. He's built like a bowling ball, and then I'll just do 2 on each side. Trey Mosley, been on the team forever. They call him Unk. for his nicknames like Uncle. He's like the leader, the quiet leader on offense. So for me, if I gotta give it one each side, I'll give it to Holiday and Trey Mosley. Maybe Trey Mosley has like 4 catches, 80 yards, and 2 touchdowns, or maybe 6 catches or something with less yards, just like small catches, but with some big catches in the end zone. I think those guys need to step up. They're the leaders, so that'd make the most sense. And maybe an honorable mention would be Nathan Carter.
I love it. I love it.
Good questions.
All right, so jumping back to Michigan's schedule, they start Big Ten play against Rutgers. It's at home. So in 2021, they played this game, and Michigan quite literally could not do anything in the second half of the offense. Um, Rutgers slants their D linemen. Last year was close until half. Michigan had 3 second half interceptions, and they ran away with it. It was like, I think the final was like 54-17. You have Gavin Winstat as the starting quarterback. He'll be returning redshirt sophomore. If they can just figure it out offensively, I don't expect Michigan to necessarily struggle in this game. I think they're going to have a full season. I loved Cade McNamara. I mean, what he did for Michigan put him back in the winning circle. Not enough can be said about his leadership, but at times his quarterback play was not where it needed to be. In 2021, this is one of those games where they didn't throw the ball in the second half, even though Rutgers was coming back. And I don't see that necessarily this year. I think Michigan's first game, I think new offensive coordinator slash elevated coordinator position. I think Michigan's going to try and make a statement after not playing anyone and having that be the whole entire offseason, and Jim Harbaugh kind of getting dogged by the NCAA slash like all the, not that the charges aren't relevant, but the, you know, pull back and forth on what's happening. And I think this is going to be a pretty good time to show off that offense and really run away with the football game. So I would expect the line probably somewhere around 20 points, and I would expect Michigan to cover.
Easy cover. Who's gonna have more yards, Edwards or Corum? That
Total?
game,
Or
that
rushing?
game, that game total,
Total or rushing?
total. Do you think Edwards will go off in the passing game?
Yeah, I mean, they really want to introduce him more. This would be a good time to do it. Last year he was injured on again, off again. Back when he was a freshman, he had like 145 receiving yards against Maryland.
Hmm.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I would give the edge to Corum. I mean, I think they're going to try to keep Corum's carries down, though. They have to. He's coming from a very serious ACL injury. So I think they're going to try to keep his carries down until he really needs it. Let him get some loose in the offseason. But I think Edwards would probably have more yards in this game and how they want to use him.
Does JJ throw over 200 yards against Rutgers?
Yes.
Okay.
I can
Hope so.
nearly guarantee that. I don't know if he did last year. I know his completion percentage was like 50% in this game. This is the stretch where he had like 4 straight games, right around 50%. But I don't expect the same struggles necessarily that they saw last year.
Got it. So that's a win, of course.
Yeah. First 4 should be pretty outstanding, large wins.
Yep. So all of our first 4 games are at home. So we got Maryland again at home, Big Ten opener against Tulia. I don't want to try to say his last name. You know who it is. It's Tua's brother. He's going to be a solid quarterback, and I think Maryland might have one of the stronger defenses in the Big Ten that it's kind of flying under the radar. So kind of a scary game, but I have us with the dub. There's no line yet with Vegas, but probably another close game, probably a field goal game. We talked about the kicking game. I think our defense needs to show. Like I think Washington, Maryland, our defense will show out. I think that's what will be our identity for the rest of the year. And if obviously we had a lot of injuries last year, not a lot of depth, but whoever's quarterback by this point, they're stepping up. They're making plays. You know, they're the leader of the team. Hopefully, there are guys being supportive. That's what we'd like to see. And if anybody gets hurt, we know we kind of have 2 guys. The running game, we were pretty ranked low in the Big Ten last year, so getting the run game established against a Big Ten team is huge. I don't care if it's Berger getting 20 carries, Carter getting 10, or vice versa, or however they break it up. If it's 3 or 4 guys running the ball and we're getting yards, that's what matters. We need 3 or 4 or 5 yards a carry. I love seeing a big rushing touchdown once a game, once every other game. 50 yards. That's running back making a play or a nice big hold by the old line. Be interesting to see. I think this will be another close game. I think State's gonna have a lot of close games, and like you said, I'm higher on them. I am worried though. This could be a game that we lose just because they're an experienced team and they have a good quarterback. And we all know that our passing defense has not been the best. Um, but I have it as a win. I have Washington as a loss. These two I was going back and forth on. Um, so right now it would be 3-1 going into our next game.
Gotcha.
Any
So yeah, I'm
questions?
not gonna really
It's a tough one.
not a question here. I'm not gonna break down Maryland. I have some thoughts on my own, but Michigan obviously plays them, and I want to save that for
Absolutely.
my talking piece about Michigan.
Hmm.
It should be an interesting group, though. Maryland's been, I think, a better program in the Big Ten than kind of is nationally perceived. They just play in a conference with three of the better teams in the country, and then when
Yeah.
state is good, four of the better teams in the country, and so it's tough to kind of judge them. Uh, where they finished with 7 wins. I remember they beat Texas 2 consecutive years. They're not a bad program. I think under Mike Loxley, right?
Yep.
They've kind of turned things around since Durkin came in and all that fiasco. So I do like the program. It'll be interesting to see how they hold up. That will be a good game, just to kind of get a vibe. If Michigan State loses that game, it's at home, and they've already previously lost the Maryland or the Washington game. That could start a tailspin in the season.
Yep.
I don't know who else is on their schedule after that, but it's one of those games that's a must-win because if unless you pull a huge upset against Washington, which is possible, MSU has pulled up tons of upsets. Um, it's a win that you have to have in the Big Ten East. So it will be interesting. That'll be a fun game to watch, kind of to see where each program is in the Big Ten.
In my opinion, it's a game we should win every year. Obviously, Maryland's getting better. Maybe they're peaking with Tulia, but in my opinion, like we talked in the first episode, like we should beat Rutgers, we should beat Maryland, we should beat Indiana. That's how I feel. But
Baseline, yeah.
you had some good points, but we'll get more into Maryland later.
So after that, we got Nebraska from Michigan. This is their first road game. This is actually going to be, I think, a decently tough game. This is Nebraska's first home game of the season. So
Shit.
their first, or well, I shouldn't say, yeah, their first big home game, I should say.
Okay.
They play at Colorado, and then they're home for this one. They play two other FCS teams, I think, or maybe they're away at they're away at Minnesota. Then they are away at Colorado. Then they play some
Northern
FCS.
Illinois, Louisiana Tech.
Yep, and then they got Michigan, which
Yep.
will be the first big home
Big
game,
game.
the first game where it's crazy. It got moved to noon, which is good news for Michigan people. It sucks playing there at night. It's a very rough and tough environment. Really fun environment there. Nebraska fans are some of the best in the country. Have to shout them out, even though their team has been pretty bad.
Yes.
So talking about Nebraska, they got a new head coach. Obviously, a whole new system offensively, whole new system defensively. They got a new quarterback. They lost a lot in terms of wide receiver play. Trey Palmer is now in the NFL on the Buccaneers. Defensively, they do return a good amount. I think they lost their leading tackler in the secondary for off-the-field issues. So it'll be interesting to see how their defense kind of holds up. They're also going to run an offense that seems more pro style compared to Whipple, who was their OC last year. So it's kind of a transitionary phase. You never want to play Nebraska team that's hungry. And I know that kind of sounds dumb, but 2 years ago they were 3-9, and
They're gonna beat
they
us.
lost every single big game by a single score because of bad special teams play
Yep.
and untimely turnovers.
Yep.
If they had a competent quarterback, a cornerback that didn't throw like 10 interceptions with like 7.5 fumbles, like they could have been 8-5, which maybe you're gonna say, yeah, who's that? But compared to 3-9 is huge. It's a big game for Nebraska. It should be fun to kind of see what ends up with this game. If Michigan is where they need to be, and Michigan's kind of in the driver's seat and feeling themselves offensively and defensively, this is the first test of a team that has comparable athletes. Rutgers is a good coaching fit. Obviously, with Nebraska's new coach, he's trying to change the culture, but it usually takes a few years. Obviously, a bunch of transfers. The running back room is going to be decently good. It'll be interesting to see where their O-line is. But overall, I think this is probably going to be a line where Michigan might be, if Nebraska loses to Colorado, for example, Michigan might be 21-point favorites, and it ends up being like a 10-point win. I don't know where the line's going to be. I don't know what it's going to end up like, but I think Michigan kind of holds a lead here. That's kind of been Harbaugh's MO on the road is get up maybe 2 scores and then just trying to hold on the lead, kind of park the offense. You saw it last year against Iowa. You saw it previously against Penn State in years. And so you saw it when MSU came back. Michigan stopped throwing the ball. It's kind of Harbaugh's MO. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that game pans out. Obviously, you expect to win. Nebraska isn't the skill level currently. I think they're going to be building a strong program out there. They have the funding. They have the fan base. It's just about getting the right coach in there that knows how to lead men and direct them in the right path.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the roster. They got a transfer quarterback from Georgia Tech, Jeff. I think
Jeff Sims.
I'm surprised they're running a pro. Isn't he kind of a runner, or is he just kind of a passer?
I think it might be pro spread,
Okay.
but it might look more like Michigan, where they're looking to run power offense, or maybe I didn't look at it a lot, but I know the offseason notes that I looked through is that he has a fullback in his offense.
Okay.
So he has a primary fullback. So I don't know if he'll play more of an H-back role, more of like a tight end light role, well, tight end heavy role, I guess you'd say for that. But I know that they're going to try and they'll probably run Jeff Sims, but I know it's a pro-style offense in the sense that they're going to I looked this up because pro-style offense, what does that mean? It's basically like how the calls in the field are made instead of you can run a pro-style spread where you run a full wide-open spread. It's kind of how the play calls and how you come and approach the game where you're not running tempo. You're running, get in a huddle. He believes in huddles. He said huddles are the foundation of football. I think he said something along those lines. So they're going to huddle up. They're going to run probably a pro power style, out of the shotgun with a fullback lead blocking type of offense.
Shout out Ruquan Buckley. He's from GR. He's on the D line for Nebraska. Okay.
Oh yeah, shout out to him.
He went to Gavin Heights. Shout out.
Awesome.
Coach there. Next for state, first away game. It's a toughie at Iowa. We all know Kinnick's tough with Cade and Eric All. The pink bathrooms. Iowa's defense is stout, always good. They're going to hold you to, 14, 21 points. And I don't really know what to think about our offense, and I'm higher probably than most people, but I have an L here. Could be another close game. Like I said, I think it's just hard to play in Kinnick, and I think Iowa's defense will be really, really good. It might be like one of those classic Big Ten. It's end of September game, so it won't be too cold yet, but I think it might be a slugfest like 21-17. Iowa wins at home. It could be an exciting game. I honestly think State's going to have a lot of close games, and if I'm wrong, play this shit back for me and make me feel like an idiot because maybe I'm too high on us, but after last year, I know I was disappointed. I know the guys were, and Coach Tucker was, so I have an L here, but a close game. I think Kinnick's too hard, and I think Cade will take. I think Cade's a good field general. He might not be the best quarterback ever, but he's a good field general. He's a good leader, and having All as a tight end is a good safety blanket. So I think they do enough to win against us, and I also think Iowa might win the West. We'll see with Wisconsin in their new setup with Fickle and Mordecai at quarterback, but I have Iowa beating us, so we'll be 4-2 going into our bye week.
So the interesting thing there too is Iowa feasts
3-2. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3-2. Sorry.
Iowa's identity is interceptions, turnovers.
Yep.
That cover 3 safety blanket layering. They just keep running it over and over again, and they're so fundamentally sound. So, although there's earlier tests, I think this is the biggest test of your quarterback that you'll see.
Yep.
From can I limit turnovers? Can I make the right reads? Can I get out of trouble when I need to? Can I throw the ball away? Can I play a game where I don't lose? This is the first game where I feel like the pressure will be on him to not lose because I was going to stop the run. I think the defense can handle Iowa's offense where maybe in the Washington game, Washington might run away with it. We don't know what that secondary for State's going to look like. Where this game is like, can your quarterback throw for 200 yards, throw for 2 touchdowns, maybe 1 touchdown, and not throw any picks, not have a turnover. That's the formula to beating Iowa.
Yeah.
Now maybe Iowa comes out and they're, Ferentz' son figures out, I can my job's actually at stake and people hate me and I'm a bad person for being shoehorned into a multi-million-dollar coaching job even though I suck.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
maybe he calls some good plays. But most likely what's going to happen is it's going to be a slugfest, and it's going to be a pick six. It's going to be a block punt. It's going to be those things that with the new quarterback and some special teams that have hurt State in the past, this is going to be the game that kind of exposes that hole, and it'll be interesting to see how that kind of turns out.
Absolutely. What do you got?
All right, so Michigan follows up an away game at Nebraska with an away game at Minnesota. So this is going to be pretty interesting. Obviously, Michigan and Minnesota play for the Little Brown Jug. Fun little rivalry there from back in the day. Minnesota was dominant in the 1900s. Haven't really found the success. PJ Fleck, for however corny he is, coaches a good football team, coaches a very by-the-numbers football team, usually have a good defense, usually run a lot of power offensive stuff. So should be fun. They do have to break in a new running back. What's his name? Trey Potts transferred to Penn State, and then
Really?
Oh my God,
I didn't know that.
Think of his name.
I can look up the roster for you.
Yeah,
Ibrahim's
Mohamed
on the
Ibrahim's
Lions.
on the Lions. Trey Potts transferred to Penn State. So they're
Why?
breaking
They
in
have two good
basically-
running backs. It makes no sense. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably because it's graduate school and it's a graduate degree, and I can also play football on a team that might win it all. So
Yeah.
And he's also a senior laden team.
Sean Tyler, he's a transfer from Western, and I think he was really good last year.
Yeah, he was. I think he might have led.
I think he led the MAC.
MAC in rushing. Yeah. So you have Sean Tyler, and then you have Athan Kaliak Manis.
Yes, hey boy. Like Manis.
Kaliak Manis. So they're breaking him in. He played down the stretch last year.
He's a big dude.
In spurts. But it's going to be interesting. It seems like they're reloading their defense. It seems like they're reloading their offense. They do have their wide receivers coming back for the most part. One of the weird things is they always produce under that PJ Fleck tree really, really good wide receivers, whether it's Rashad Bateman or Corey Davis when he was at Western. He knows how to produce a number one. It'll be interesting to kind of see.
He got another Western guy too. That's a receiver, Corey Coons.
Yep.
And Autumn
So
Bell is really good too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what this team looks like. I think there's a lot of question marks, and we'll find out because they play an early game against Nebraska, and I think they have a non-conference game against another Power 5 opponent. I don't have that up in front of me. But it's going to be fun. I think back-to-back road games, especially going out west, playing in the Central Time Zone is always tough because that's a lot of traveling in back-to-back weeks. But I think Michigan's just the better team here. Now, if this is a night game in Minnesota, it can get kind of goofy. That's a weird place to play, weird atmosphere. OSU on opening night a few years ago in a night game played a close game until like the fourth quarter, late third. But I think Michigan's just the better team. I don't know enough about this team. They've replaced a lot of offensive linemen in the last 2 years. So I just think Michigan's the better team, and they should probably win. This might be a game where you rely more on JJ's arm. Minnesota's defense, they're gonna come ready. They're gonna become prepared to stuff the run.
Yeah, I also don't know how good of a quarterback this kid's gonna be. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's a big body, but when I was watching games last year, I don't remember when he was playing. I don't remember him doing much. And of course, we talked about it last time. Tanner Morgan shredded us, but I never thought he was anything special either. So I guess we'll see how good Sean Tyler is. I think he's a solid running back. I think it could be a good test for Michigan. I think Michigan wins too, but definitely a test.
This is back-to-back like medium servings, like just to get a barometer on where Michigan's at. Like if Michigan goes out and dog walks these teams, it's going to be like, oh, Michigan's, playing with a different fire this year. If it's like close and Michigan pulls away, it's like, oh, it's kind of like last year. And if they're close until late in the game, you're going to be like, okay, we might have some concerns because these teams shouldn't be competing with Michigan, for 4 quarters. Now for 2 maybe, but not really for 4, just because of the recruiting's a different level compared to where Michigan's at. With Michigan, they might lose 10 guys to the draft next year. So.
Yeah. Okay. So our next week after Iowa, we have a bye, and then we go at Rutgers. Like I said, our measuring stick is to beat Rutgers. I have this as a win at Rutgers. Last time we were at Rutgers, it was kind of a slow game, and then Kenneth Walker went on a 90-yard run. Everyone knows the handshake with him and Naylor, so that was super cool. But like I said, we should beat Rutgers every year. Last year we lost to Indiana and Maryland. which is disappointing. The way we lost to Indiana is even more disappointing. But we should beat Rutgers every year, no problem. I think whoever's quarterback is totally in the role now, and they're going to have a big game here. I can see them having a bigger game, 250, 300 yards, and then I can see Berger, Carter, and whoever else is in the mix by then having a couple touchdowns as a running back crew, maybe 3 rushing touchdowns, and the quarterback. Maybe we score 35, 40 points here. I could be way wrong on our offense right now, but I think that
Hey, Dave,
we should be better
you
than.
don't have to you don't have to correct yourself every time. Just have a take.
Yeah,
Just you don't need to say, "Oh, I may be wrong." Like we know, and we're gonna roast you for
we'll
it.
get.
Like,
I'll get
if
roasted.
State goes 2-10. They're not gonna go 2-10. I'm being ridiculous, but you don't have to say that.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah,
just
yeah,
give
yeah.
your take, brother. We believe in you. You know what you're saying. We know you watch the games.
Yep. But I think we win. I think our defense probably can shut them down, so they probably score 14 points, but we should be able to score 28, 35 with our offense. I'm pretty high on our O line. Whoever's quarterback, I think will get the job done, and our running backs will be good. I think that's well known what I've been hearing in scrimmages, and the receivers will just do their part. Maybe a guy breaks out. Who knows? Could be Trey Mosley, could be a young guy. But I think we win like 35-14, 28-14, 17 like that, and we'll be 4-2 at this point, going into a big rival game after that.
Perfect. So, Michigan's gonna be
Undefeated. Are you at the state game?
6-0 at this point. Nope. They have one game before State, so State.
Oh, okay.
I think. Let me see. Yeah, so State is coming off a bye. Michigan isn't, which I don't know how that works out. Every single year, State comes off a bye before they play Michigan.
Are we? Let me look.
Absolutely.
I thought
You
our
said
bye.
that,
I thought
right?
our bye is Iowa bye, Rutgers, Michigan.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong, but I double checked it when I wrote this out.
No, that's fair. So, Michigan plays Indiana this week. So, they're 6-0 at this point. They're probably rolling. Last year, this was a really close game. Obviously, there was extenuating circumstances. Michigan was up, I think, 7-3 or 7-0 driving, and Mike Hart collapsed on the sideline and had to be, driven away. That obviously, you're 17. He's collapsing right next to you. It's an intense moment where you don't know if he's okay. Michigan fumbles like 2 plays later. Like Blake Corum doesn't look like himself. It was a really weird game. This was JJ's first 300-yard game for Michigan. I think he had 3 touchdowns. Indiana played back a lot, prevented the deep pass. It was kind of a weird game, a weird feeling. Michigan ended up running away with it 31-14 by the end of it. But it was definitely a close game going into half. There was a few blocked field goals, missed field goals, stuff like that. I think this year is do or die for Tom Allen.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how this team performs. I think they're going to be okay. Last year they ran that hurry-up weird offense. I don't even know if they have the same coordinator. But it bit them in the butt because they didn't line up well, and their O-linemen were gassed by about their 3rd or 4th drive, and Michigan just was like, okay, we'll rush 4 and play press, and your O-linemen are dead tired, and we'll just get – I think they had like 7 or 8 pressures. Like, it was just one after the other. And so it'll be fun to see how Michigan does in this game. It's the week before MSU, so maybe looking ahead a little bit if MSU's playing well. But this should be another game. Indiana's played Jim Harbaugh, with Tom Allen pretty close. A lot of the years where first halves are close and then Michigan runs away with the superior talent. You'd like to see Michigan start dominating these teams early, getting backups out, getting starters out, getting the backup running backs in with some of the injuries they've had at the running back position the last few years. So this is one of those games where hopefully they blow them out, make it simple, and I can just look at the next Saturday, if I'm being honest. So, Tom Allen, he might be fired after this year. Indiana just sucks as a program. For their entire history, it's sad to say, but it's just who they are. They don't have a generational quarterback really coming in. They don't have a generational running back, to make a difference changer, because that's who changes your culture at small schools like this. If you have one guy that completely changes the face of your program, and then you get more recruits in. That's how you win long term. And Indiana hasn't really ever had that. They've been a mediocre to below average team for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think their only decent year was COVID, so they're like 4-2, 5-1.
Yeah, it was COVID with Penix, who then left to follow the OC because Tom Allen, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
All right. I think when we preview games down the road here, this will be a fun week. Who knows where State will be? I think we all know Michigan will be undefeated. Um, we're 19-point dogs.
Yeah.
Do you?
Michigan is
This will be closer to 19 points. I mean, what was the final last year? I can't remember before the whole scuffle.
is 29-7.
And our only we scored first, right?
Yeah, you scored. No,
Trey-
it was,
We
I
scored.
think it was 7-7.
Okay.
7-0, and then we immediately. I don't remember the exact.
Keon scored. I know that.
Yeah, he had back-to-back jump balls.
Yep. 29-7. Obviously, tunnel incident. There's been a lot of, maybe when you're in town, KB, we can always do podcasts together. I might just do one by myself if you're doing wedding stuff. Shout out, I'll be in the wedding. There's been a lot of weird shit on Twitter. There's been a lot of talking. Everyone thinks that they're going to get jumped at State at a night game. We're fucking all neighbors. We all work together.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm a big fan. I'm going to talk fucking shit, and I'm going to get heated discussions with my guys. A lot of my good buddies are Michigan fans, and they had to deal with us being good from 2008 to, I don't know, we were up and down a couple times in there, but we were pretty dominant over the last 15 years. Michigan's got us the last couple times. No one should, if there's any skirmishes at the stadium, people are drunk and stupid. Somebody said something about bringing a weapon to the stadium. Like, there's just a shooting at the campus 7 months ago. Like, have some, understand what the fuck you're talking about, because that really pisses me off when people are just stupid. Will there be?
People might
It's
have
stupid.
a single IQ that's like linking them all together, and that's why they're on the message boards. Because that place, like Twitter's a gross place.
Yeah.
But those message boards, like, probably shouldn't exist.
And the whole.
Like the things that get said in there, the things that like people just like spiral and death spiral. Like, no, it's not an unsafe place to go to MSU.
Yeah.
You
You've
can go
been
to
there for
MSU,
games. You've been there for
you're
tailgates.
yeah, I've been there for games. I was wearing, blue and yellow to a game they were playing ASU at. Like, they're nice people. We're all neighbors.
Yep.
We're all friendly. Now the rivalry's intense.
Absolutely.
Obviously, there's been on the field scuffles leading up to this with the Devin Bush incident.
Fuck that guy.
Michigan destroying the locker room.
Stake it.
All this.
Don't forget that one. That was a good one.
Well, that was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stake in what 2013 or whatever.
That might have been the Devin Gardner game.
It was. Yeah. Michigan had.
There's a lot we could talk about.
Yeah. But, I would love to see them come out. I want the rivalry to be intense, but on the field the last few years, it's been.
I will say that Kenneth Walker game was fucking one of the best games I've ever been to.
Yeah.
Just a good football game. Was Thorne's shin knee down? I don't know what the rule is. It went in our favor. Does the NCAA hate Michigan? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you got to stop one guy. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
It was one of the craziest atmospheres I've been in at a game.
Yeah, it's a fun atmosphere. It's gonna be a night game, so there's gonna be a lot of
Black unis.
Yeah.
100%. I hope we're at least 4-2 at this point. I was gonna talk about. Sorry.
Let's preview it, and we're gonna do this obviously because it's against the two teams.
Yep.
We'll preview this. What Dave thinks is gonna happen, and that's kind of why I took the first 3 games so we could preview this at the same time. And this is gonna be the majority of this discussion probably.
Probably.
It's gonna be interesting to see what Dave thinks and what I think.
Yep.
But it should be fun. So Dave, if you want to start us off, I want to ask this question, and then you can kind of go in. What does MSU need to do to win that game? Like what?
Yeah.
What's the thing that they need to do? Now, don't say turnovers because obviously turnovers are big, but like pressuring JJ. Covering the receivers or rushing, dominating the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
What's that thing? What's that key moment that you'll be like, okay, even if it's like U of M's up, 3 points, you're like, yeah, but we can win this, even though we're down.
Yep.
Like, what's that feeling that you have to feel?
We got to stop the run game. I mean, obviously, I would personally put the game in JJ's hands. Everyone's high on him. I think, our defensive secondary is not that good, has not been that good. I hope it's better. I don't think he had anything crazy numbers against us last year. that I can think of. So I mean, we know Corman and Edwards are the guys, and if we can shut them down, they might get 100 yards, but they can't go off for 150, 200 combined. That would be game over. You're gonna have possession, um, and you're just gonna run down our defense. So I think our front seven needs to step up, put the game in JJ's hands, and if we do that enough, and we shut down the run, and we make you guys throw, if we can get some weird blitz packages in there, or get a guy. I can't remember if he ever went off against Michigan, but a guy like Kenny Willekes, who's a nobody from North Point Christian in Grand Rapids, it was fucking dog and got to the quarterback. We need a guy on our defensive line to do that. So I hope somebody shows up. If we're gonna put the game in the quarterback's hands and JJ and he beats us, I'll respect him. That's a good win. But if we stop the run game, I think we have a good chance. And then obviously I think your defense will be stout. A bunch of no-name guys that do a good job that are probably NFL guys who just don't really know who they are. I think it will be an old school Big Ten game. I'm high on us, so I think it'll be close, but we'll see. I'm not going to autocorrect myself. I have us when I first made this list, my bias put a win, but knowing that Michigan's going to be good, easily could be a loss.
Perfect. I love that. So, when you look back at the rivalry, it's actually pretty interesting since Harbaugh's gotten there. MSU's bad teams outside of 2020, which is just a clusterfuck of a year, so we're not really going to focus on that. Michigan has dominated MSU's bad teams and lost close to the good teams. It's actually pretty fascinating. You have 2015 good team, 2016 good team, both losses. 2016 they won, which was a bad MSU team if I remember correctly, right? They were
I think so.
Yeah. 2017 good MSU team. Michigan throws the ball 60 times. Really bad play calling. MSU plays really well. 2018 Michigan wins. 2019 Michigan wins. 2019 was a blowout, if I remember correctly. It was like 44-17 or something like that. 2021, both teams are good. Close game. 2022,
Great game.
MSU's bad. Michigan kills them. So it's been interesting over the course of Harbaugh's rivalries that it's usually a close game if MSU's good. So if MSU is on track for, if they beat Iowa, if they beat Washington, you might be like, yeah, the ears perk up. Outside of that, Michigan's done a good job handling the rivalry for, all jokes aside. Other than, a dropped punt coverage, Harbaugh's record looks really good against them. Obviously, 2020 is a weird year. I don't really count it as a year. MSU fans can count it. There's no fans in the stands. It's just goofiness. And also point, if Matt Neal, if you're listening, I know you complained that MSU had to play back-to-back years and U of M didn't play it back. There was no fans in the stands, dude. I don't know why you always talked about that. It was weird. But it should be a good game. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how Michigan handles it. And I would say MSU's ticket to win isn't run defense overall. I think you can have Corum and Edwards go for around 200 if you get the big-time stops. On the 3rd and 2s, on the 3rd and 3s, you stonewall Michigan. You sell out to stop the run. Michigan, in those situations, has to run the ball 87% of the time, especially if they go fast. If they go like fast, hurry up, they're running a dive. And if MSU can kill first downs, Michigan's offense is predicated on getting a bunch of first downs, getting the red zone, and trying to figure it out. If they can kill some of those 3rd and 3 runs, that's how you beat Michigan. You don't necessarily – you can give up 3 or 4 first downs. They get around the 50, and they're going to run, and then try and run again. And if you stuff them just in those runs, you don't have to stuff them all the time. Obviously, can't run rampant. But those short yardage situations where Michigan's just trying to get a first down instead of going for a deep shot, that's when you stuff them. That's how you kind of kill Michigan's offense. That's how you slow them down a lot. Or you get them out of position early. But it's really those short yardage situations that you just have to dominate, which is why State kept that game close last year. 29-7, it could have been 45-7. Michigan was in the red zone 8 times. They just didn't score because MSU's, 3rd and short defense was really productive. And if they can keep that up, I think it can be another close game. I think offensively, if Michigan State hasn't figured it out, it could be a scary game for this offense. This defense is going to be very, very good. If you can't challenge those cornerbacks, this run game isn't anything to play with. You have some absolute monsters inside and at linebacker. State always has a bunch of tricks up their sleeve. They always call a really good game. They're always super aggressive, which I love. If Harbaugh had more ounces of testicular ball mass, he would be able to win some of those games instead of being like, "Oh, it's 3rd and 4. We should run it because we're in our own half." Instead of saying, "Hey, let's take a shot," because they have 9 dudes in the box, and that's the difference between being a risk taker and not. And in Mel Tucker's 2021 campaign, the reason they won is because they took those shots. They kept fighting. They kept churning out yards. They kept fighting for the next possession, and that's why that State's always a dangerous team. And at night and away, I think it's going to be a fun game. I'm super excited for it. I'm sad that it's not completely over um, Halloween weekend, but
Yeah,
it'll
that
have
is
to
cool
be.
when that happens.
Yeah, I
Um,
love Halloween weekend. You can do a Halloween party along with a U of M MSU watch party. But
yeah. I mean, obviously, Michigan. Obviously, Michigan State has other question marks. So, I mean, what are you looking for out of your team? I think, for me, I'm biased
for
and I
like
give us the
win,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, probably run dominant.
um,
Defense is solid.
no, I think, I mean, defensively, I'd be surprised if Michigan State put up more than 21 points.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I would even stretch it to 17. Where they're at now. Now, if their quarterback figures it out and they get a wide receiver explode, that might change throughout the year. But right now, I'd be incredibly surprised. Just with how U of M's defense is matching up. U of M struggles against teams that run a really heavy spread concept, put guys in terrible positions, force pass concepts, and get some big explosive plays. And MSU isn't that team right now. They may be by the time they play Michigan, but they're not right now.
Hmm.
So defensively, I'm not too worried. Offensively, I think MSU, all 3 years that Tucker's been there, has put an emphasis of we're not gonna get the ball jammed down our throat. And
Correct.
I think Michigan can, you know, take advantage of a, wary secondary where they don't really know what they have. And if Michigan can take this game and finally, for once, say it's okay if we throw for a bajillion yards. I don't need to get that first down. I'm looking to the end zone. My goal is the end zone.
Yeah.
It's not to get on the 35-yard line and get to the 25-yard line. It's to put the ball in the end zone. If they be more adept at vertically attacking and getting in those seams that MSU has failed to cover for all of Tucker's tenure, I think that's how Michigan wins this game. And then red zone, red zone, red zone. The last 3 seasons since Tucker's been there, MSU has been dominant in the red zone. Even if you look back to when Michigan lost to State in COVID year, like everyone's like, first off, it was a blowout. Michigan lost by 7. Now it was a 14 or 15-point game before that, but Michigan had 3 trips to the red zone and came out with 3 points in part of that game, and that's been the thing. When Michigan lost to Michigan State, they had chances to go up 3 scores, and they couldn't. And that's what MSU's been really good about is stuffing Harbaugh. So I expect some more, Harbaugh getting his bag a little bit and call some better plays in the red zone and score some points. And also, one point, I know people were also talking about just in the fighting incident that Michigan was running trick plays and running up the score. State did that all throughout
We
the
did that. We
D'Antonio
did that.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
We had to stick it.
fine.
We had to
If
stake
you
it to
can,
him. He said that when that was the
yes,
state game.
exactly. Put it, embarrass people. It's your
D'Antonio was
job.
so good at getting guys up for this game. All the clips,
Yeah.
if you're a State fan of Michigan, you've probably seen them all, but it's not over. It will never be over. Mike Hart started that with the little brother comments. We all know it. Um, but that was when State kind of took over for the next 10 years, sorry, give or take, a couple games by Michigan. So I think Tucker's good at getting the guys going, but D'Antonio was that kind of coach that like took this very serious, and I love that about him. I think Tucker does too. Don't get me wrong, but it was just Coach D brought
It's
that
a
little bit
different
more
level.
to it, just a little more intensity. But I'm really looking forward to previewing this game during the season. I hope State's 3-3, 4-2, doing okay, and just has a little bit of swag to him. So really looking forward to previewing it and talking a little bit of smack. Obviously Michigan's probably going to be undefeated, um, but I'll be definitely be excited and ramped up to go to that game.
It could be an opportunity for a huge upset for MSU.
Yes. So after Michigan, which could be depending on what happens, we're going to at Minnesota. Could be a tricky game, like KB was saying about Minnesota. But I have us with the win here. I don't. When we were talking, I just looked at the quarterback at the depth chart, and I don't know if he's got it. Do I think the receivers and running back are probably going to be solid? Yes, but I think State has a little bit better of a defense at this point, and if our quarterback isn't more talented than Minnesota's quarterback, there's a problem. Maybe last year Thorne was banged up and Tanner Morgan kind of torched us, but that was one of the most demoralizing games I've been to. So I'd like to see us come back and beat them this year.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of like I said. There's a few barometer games for you throughout the year. Maryland. This is another one where like for Tucker to have earned his contract, he has to win this. Even
Hmm.
if he's at a disadvantage, this is the game you have to win.
Yep.
Figure out a way. In the year that they won 11 games, they found ways to win games, and that's how he has to be again, right? The Nebraska game was incredibly close, and Jaden Reed returned for a touchdown. It's just
And
finding
that
ways
was
to
bad
win.
coverage on Nebraska because they had Naylor and Reed both back, and they
Yeah, I
faked him
mean,
out and Reed. That
Nebraska's
was
special teams
that was what I was
didn't
talking
have a
about.
special teams coach. Did you know that? They did not have a special teams coach.
Eesh. And then we won in
When
overtime.
Foss was there, they didn't get one until his last year, and obviously he was fired like within 4 weeks. They didn't have a special, like a dedicated
Couldn't
special
tell.
teams coach.
That
Yeah,
was that
yeah, you
bad.
really could. In all of their one-score losses, all of them coming down to special teams, you really couldn't
I
tell.
was at a wedding that day, and I was probably good because I wouldn't freaking out in the stadium if I was there for that Nebraska game.
Yeah. So, expecting a win against Minnesota, that should be a fun game.
Yes,
Is that you said at Minnesota?
that's Halloween weekend. We're not. We usually go to one away game. Me and the guys we tailgate with. Shout out Matt Neal, and promo guy. Um, we might go to that game or Iowa, depending on if we beat Washington or not.
That should be fun. So Michigan follows up with the reigning Big Ten West champs Purdue. Um, Obviously breaking in a new quarterback, breaking in a new head coach, breaking in a whole lot. Um, so Ryan, I think his name is Ryan Walters or Waters or something like that. He was at Illinois DC last year. So I'm expecting Purdue won't. Purdue's had an underrated defense. I just don't think they were playing the right scheme to
Oh,
really last in the Big Ten. They're kind of stingy at times, but their quarterback play has been below caliber, below kind of what you would really want it to be. But overall, I think that this team can be decently dangerous. I mean,
the quarterback is
Big Ten West
experienced.
has been, yeah, Hudson Card. You're getting a Texas transfer. He
Hmm.
started, I think, 8 games last year for Texas, maybe five. But he's not a slouch. He was just not, the prodigal son that was
Hmm.
Quinn Ewers.
Hmm.
But Hudson Card should be slinging it. A lot of positive things out of camp. It's just gonna see is their defense ready is really gonna be the thing because I think they're transitioning defenses. I think from a 3-3-5 to 3-4 if I believe correctly. So it might be some full new head coach. Is he ready to step into that big next stage? I think this is a team to kind of look out for. That's definitely being slept in by a lot of teams throughout the country. The Big Ten West is wide open, basically every year down the stretch, and Purdue could be one of those teams that goes out there and proves it. I do like how their offensive scheme. I don't know what they're doing offense. I
Air
think they
raid.
might have the same. Well,
Says
I
air
think they
raid.
might have the same. Yeah, I think they might have the same OC. So it should be fun to see what they kind of do. Devon Maccabee, he's the goofiest looking runner in the world, but he's a very solid Big Ten running back. He runs kind of like crazy legs. It's really weird. He like makes you miss without making you miss. I don't know. It's the
I
goofiest
had to
thing.
look
Lots
at
of folks love.
highlights.
Yeah, it's the goofiest thing. But Michigan beat them in the Big Ten championship game. Decent team, but obviously has to be a win. This is one of those you're getting into the home stretch. Michigan basically has 3.5 game season, depending on how state is. If state's a good team, a positive team, that's definitely a big game on their calendar. Obviously, they're circling it, but just from a cultural aspect, you're looking at the last three stretch of Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State is what we're kind of getting into. And Purdue is going to be probably a closer game than we want it to be, previewing Penn State, but coming off of I think it's coming off of coming off of a bye, you have to kind of put it on them. It's a home game, so.
Absolutely. After at Minnesota, we're Nebraska at home. I think we both think Nebraska will be better with Matt Rule as head coach. Um, I think he's gonna have a nice. I think he's gonna do a lot better than Scott Frost, which is really weird because Scott Frost went there and he killed it at UCF. So I think he's gonna take what he took at Baylor, and before he got to the NFL, and whatever worked at Baylor will work at Nebraska. I think so. Maybe a little time for him to adjust to the Big Ten. So I got us with the win at home. I think our defense is stout enough at this point in time this season. It's going to be cold. It's going to be November. And I think our offense just does enough to win this one. And I think we probably match up well. New coach. Obviously, Nebraska's offense will probably be in sync by then, but I just think we'll be the slightly better team at this point, and we'll get the win. Maybe a close game again, kind of like a couple years ago, but another win for us.
Or like, what does that bring your record to?
One, two, three. Let me count. I'm gonna count Michigan last. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2. So we're either 5-3 or 6-2.
Okay,
Let's say 5-3.
so three's including the Michigan loss.
Yes, it'd be lost to Washington, Iowa, and Michigan. 6-2 would be beating Michigan.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. One of the things that I always think about when I think about Michigan State and a Nebraska matchup is you guys have had some wild endings.
Yep.
You had the weird pass interference call.
Phantom.
Punt return.
Ugh.
The pass. Okay, I'm not gonna give you even weird now. You're being weird. No, I'm kidding. The pass interference call that was kind of questionable. And
The one where they
it's
beat
just
us when we
always-
went to the playoff when they ran out of bounds and scored.
Yeah.
That was a weird one too. And then
So-
the punt.
Yep, the punt game, and I just love this matchup. First off, Christmas colors, gotta love it, red and green. But what would scare you about this team? Like, if you're at this team, you beat Michigan, like you're riding that high, right? You play. Who do you play after Michigan?
At
Right?
Minnesota.
At Minnesota, right? Let's say you beat them, then you come here and you're coming back home. Do you think that there might be like a hangover that like this Nebraska team, and you may not be like have fully figured out your team, and this Nebraska team with like a very good college coach like figures you out for a game, and this might be like one of those scary like, oh, we just got blown out, we don't know how at home, which Mel Tucker's had a lot of at his time at Michigan State, a lot of double-digit blowout losses.
I understand what you're saying, and I can see somebody leaning that way, but I would say no at this point. This is our last home game, technically, because we play Penn State at Ford Field. So this is senior
Oh,
day,
yeah.
so I hope we show up. And even if we lose, it's close. I understand what you're saying, and I would agree, but with this being the true last home game, we better show the hell up.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't know it was the last home game.
Technically, 'cause we're
adds a
playing at
little
Ford
bit
Field.
more spice to it.
Yep.
So, Michigan, their next game is against Penn State. So, I
Big
think
game.
I think Michigan's gonna lose this game
Is it at Penn State or at home?
at Penn State.
Ooh.
It's a noon kickoff, so
Oh.
it's not the night
Could that get
whiteout.
flexed? Could it get flexed?
No.
No flex?
It's
Okay.
Big Ten. It's big noon. It's already the big noon kickoff. Fox got Michigan in their cubby hole to call noon games.
When
Love
does
them
Penn
for
State
that.
play Ohio State?
The week that they play. I don't even know.
Let's see here.
I think it's the weekend before the MSU game.
They play that same October 21. That's the same week. That week's gonna be stacked.
October 21 is MS. Oh wow.
That
Yeah, I know
that's gonna be a stacked week of games.
think
I think
that's-
there's a bunch of games that
that's
day,
big noon too. Then I think that's big noon, which is why the Michigan State's the night game.
and I think there
So
might be
I
a
think-
really good SEC game at 3:30.
Yeah, it's gonna be a stacked week, but I think Michigan loses this game, so it's so hard to go undefeated in back-to-back seasons. So Michigan went 12-0 last year. They had a really close call against Illinois that they could have lost. Had a few other close games throughout the year that were close at half and they ran away with. But this is one of the games where I think they lose. And this isn't me being low on Michigan. It's me being really high on Penn State. I think Penn State is going to be so dynamic out of the backfield with Singleton and Allen that Alar is going to be J.J. McCarthy.
I think
from
Aller could
last
be
year.
really
Like, a lot
good.
of people are like, well, can he be better than Sean Clifford? I don't think he's going to have to be better than Sean Clifford. I think he's just going to be less mistake prone, less wobbly, more quick, more accurate, more consistent. I think Sean Clifford had such high highs in huge games that we forgot that when he was bad, he couldn't complete a pass.
Yeah.
I mean, against OSU, he single-handedly lost that game. Now everyone talks about, oh, it was actually JT Tuilamolau or whatever his name is, who's great 5-star defender. Look, Sean Clifford threw a ball directly at him, threw another ball directly at him, got strip sacked from him coming from his front side.
Hmm.
I mean,
I remember watching
he
that.
played horribly.
Yeah.
And they still were close in the second half against a very, very skilled Ohio State team. They were very close. And without, and you watch his touchdown passes. One was a screen pass that was kind of a weird play. Another one was a run. Like it wasn't him that was leading that team. It was a very terrible game. And I think Drew Lar, they're gonna take the pressure off of him. Their offensive line is finally solid. They're great. They have probably their left tackle. I think it's Fashu is his last name. He's gonna go in like the top 10 probably. He's an absolute animal. He's a mauler. They're gonna lean on the run game. They're gonna take deep action, play action shots with that big, tall quarterback behind them. They're gonna protect them. They're gonna, there are some questions at wide receiver, but then you turn over on the defense, and their secondary is gonna be a little suspect. They lost their starting safety. They lost Joey Porter Jr. Now they return Kalen King, and they return their nickelbacker and their other safety, which are all really good players. But I don't think that their secondary is going to be as good. I mean, you're not going to replace two. I think they had a first rounder and a second rounder out of the secondary. You just don't get those guys back. Now, Kalen King could be a first rounder this year, but you don't return that productivity. And so I think Michigan's going to get into that point where they run the ball and just keep running the ball because they're scared. JJ's on the road. It's Penn State. It's wild. It's chaos. And Penn State, they can stop the run because they're aggressively filling gaps. They're aggressively that Manny Diaz defense hunts. They're not looking to play soft, force mistakes. They're looking to dominate a defense. They're looking to take complete control over of an offense by not letting them do anything. And they're going to spring some big plays, but I think overall that's their approach. And I think if Michigan's scared in this game, that's the worst thing they can do. You have to keep taking shots.
Yeah.
I think being at home is a difference maker, and I think Penn State wins this game. I think it's going to be close, pretty darn close.
Does James Franklin find a way to fuck it up?
Oh well, he might lose by 40 against Ohio State, but he doesn't screw up this one. I mean, 2 years ago, Michigan should have lost at Penn State, even though Penn State wasn't that great of a team. James Franklin ran a fake field goal from like the 15-yard line.
Is that when Eric All had that big catch?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like a drag,
So,
and he
I mean,
just.
Yeah, drag with a little pick on top of it, and he ran for forever.
Mhm.
I think Penn State wins this game. I think they're going to be very, secure. I think Michigan's run defense is going to hold up, but just Harbaugh playing too conservative. And Penn State is a really, really good team. So I really respect them this year, and I expect them to make a bit of a leap. I don't think they go undefeated, but I think they do make a leap.
I think Drew Aller will be good, and I think all three in the top of the East might beat each other, honestly. Um,
Yes.
Next up for us, we're at Ohio State. This is going to be a loss right off the bat, I'll say that, but it has to be closer than the last 2 years. It's just that simple. I mean, we got whacked both.
It can't be larger. Like I don't physically think it can be more points.
It's been terrible. Like, I think when we had Kenneth Walker, he was hurt. I literally turned it off at half. Last year, I think I left probably halfway through the fourth quarter. We just kind of knew it was over. I think there was some times in the game at home last year where like Marvin Harrison Jr. just mossed Chuck, and Chuck was in a good spot. Brantley, one of our better corners. We had some okay plays here and there. Some young guys were playing. We had a lot of injuries, like I said, but you can't get smacked every year by this team. This is a measuring stick. As much as obviously Michigan's a good team, we always play Michigan tough. But when we were whatever and one going in playing them, they just smacked us. Their spread right now is 25.5. I would like us to lose by two touchdowns, 17 points, and keep it competitive. We don't know anything about the quarterback for OSU. They always recruit well. Let's be honest.
Former
They
5-star. That's all you need to know. It's
yeah,
Ryan Day.
it's
The best receivers in the country by
exactly.
a large margin.
So they're probably going to torch us a couple times deep. We know it's a terrible matchup scheme for Scotty Hazelton. If he doesn't figure it out this year, he's probably gone. But it's easy loss for me looking at this game. But we need to be better. It's just that simple. I think Tucker knows that. So whatever we got to do, definitely a tough stretch. Michigan at Minnesota, Nebraska, then at Ohio State. But everybody gets hurt, everybody has injuries, but we got to be better. So I'd like to see us have some fight in us and keep it close, but I don't think we win.
And I think the big thing watching those games the last 2 years is really just stopping the snowball.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what
bad.
MSU needs to do in those games. Is like, what happens is OSU gets a 60-yard touchdown pass.
They stop us three
Then
and out,
MSU goes 3 and out,
and
and
they have
then
another one.
OSU gets a 60-yard touchdown pass. And it's like, okay, they just did that. And sometimes it's on the exact same play, which
Yeah.
is like, holy shit, what are we doing defensively here, guys? And I think that's the thing that, I mean, even if you lose by 21, if it's like, all right, they scored a touchdown late to put the game away, you're not going to be upset. It's like, but there has to be a fight. You guys haven't fought in 2 years against them, or 3 years, right? I mean, 2020 was, or did you play them
I
in
don't think we
2020?
played them in 2020. I can look, but
I mean, that's what I really want to see is
like
out of
D'Antonio
like,
beat these. D'Antonio, maybe Ohio State was down, but when we had D'Antonio's coach, we always played up with them. We always kept it close. We beat them multiple times. We beat them in the Big Ten championship. We beat them with our really probably one of our better quarterbacks in program history out with Damian Terry and Tyler O'Connor. Weird game when they had Zeke and didn't run the ball. It was like 14. It was a close game. Michael Geiger, but I don't know what it is now. If it's a scheme thing, but we played them tough. It was 20-49 last year. So let's look. 20-49, 56-7. Oh yeah, the last three have been really bad. 20,
yeah. So
49-20, 56-7, 52-12, 34-10. We haven't won since 2015 against them, and that was the Michael
yeah,
Geiger game. Jesus,
and that's the difference. It has to be close. It has to be
has to be. I mean, one,
a
two, three,
battle.
4, 5
Like,
blowouts, 6 if you want to include
yeah,
26-6.
yeah. I mean,
Oof.
it's been a mauling. So
I
I
mean,
mean, that's the
obviously,
real thing. I mean, it'd be cool to beat them, but it's just like, can we show some life? Can
obviously
we
Ohio
be
State
alive
is
in these
like
games?
top 5 program probably in the country. But
Mhm.
like that's the measuring stick. It's just that simple. It can't be blowout every year. I don't know what we have to do if we need to get better corners or a better coordinator, but it's definitely not easy to watch. And when we beat them in the Big Ten title game, that was nuts. And then when we beat them the year we went to the playoff, that was also nuts. So, do we have it in the program? Yes, but something's got to change in the next couple of years to get to the top in the Big Ten, especially with everybody coming in and joining us.
It'll be interesting to see how that kind of all comes out. So
Yes.
moving on, we're nearing the end of the schedule here in Maryland. At Maryland is so they have back-to-back weeks at Penn State, at Maryland. They have to go out east a little bit. Um, I'm not as high, so I mean I think Maryland's going to be a good program. They're returning their starting quarterback, who's been I think it's his 6th year in college, so he's
Probably.
seasoned. He knows what to do, but when I look at them offensively, they lost linemen. They lost their two top receivers. They are returning the quarterback and running back, but that's not who the team wants to be. They added Josh Gaddis, who I know Loxley's probably still going to be chief. They were both at Alabama together as co-offensive coordinators, so they have a long-term relationship. But they were at, you know, Josh Gaddis ran away from a top OC job and got laughed out of Miami. Tyler Van Dyke was considered a dark horse Heisman candidate, was considered a top 25 draftee heading into the season. And Josh Gaddis made him look like a top 25 car salesman on the weekend. And that's no disrespect to Tyler Van Dyke, because I think he's a good quarterback. It's the scheme. I think Josh Gaddis loves plays. He calls really good plays, but he doesn't call a really good offense. So what I mean by that is I think he's really good at knowing, hey, I have this play, and if we get this double move, oh man, it's so beautiful. It's exactly how it's supposed to run, and he calls it. But he didn't set it up. He didn't make it look good to make that double move the best. He didn't call the two run plays before that, and then he doesn't know how to get away from it. You saw it at times at Michigan, and I think Harbaugh was in his ear like, dude, no, we're better than the team. Let's just run it down their throat. So I think if he can make that step with Loxley, who's called a competent offense for all the years he's been at Maryland, they'll be a good team. But I look at what they have to reproduce on the offensive line. They don't have the recruiting for it. They have to replace two wide receivers on the outside. That makes me nervy. And then they lost Deontay Banks, their top cornerback. They lost the safety. Pretty sure they lost the starting linebacker.
Mm.
And so I think they're going to be good, but they might be beat up at this point in the season. where it's close for a half and then Michigan just steamrolls them in the second.
And they'll
Where
probably
it's
be
like,
angry,
oh my
probably
god,
be pissed after losing to Penn State if
yeah,
if that's what
yeah,
like what you
it
said.
might be like 41-17 at the end, where it's like 21-10 at half, and Michigan just raw dogs it the rest of the way.
Mhm.
But I'm high on Maryland. I think they're good, but it's just a lot to replace. And every time I see Josh Gaddis' name, I kind of cringe a little bit. Just thinking about his time at Miami and what he kind of did at Michigan. So
So Michigan will be 10-1 going into the big game.
10-1. Yep, going into the game.
So I have us 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll probably be 7-4 going into the last
Going
game.
into yep,
Maybe
Penn
maybe
State.
have 8. I don't know. I'm high in the team. I hope we get 7-5. So going into Penn State, it's the day after Thanksgiving. This is new. On a Black Friday. Right now Penn State's plus 13, or State's 13-point dog. Sorry. Probably a loss. I think Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan are head and shoulders above the rest of the teams, and obviously after last year, we just were not there. I think it can be competitive, but they beat us pretty good at home last year, and I just would like to see where we are at this time of the year. Last game of the year, after Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday. Shout out. Um, at Ford Field, I've never been, so I'm gonna go. So it'd be nice to be there for the first time.
That'll be
Eh,
awesome.
yeah. I just hope it's competitive and like we play Michigan close usually, but Penn State and us have been kind of back and forth. We beat them pretty good a couple years ago, and then they beat us pretty good at home last year. So I'm kind of interested to see what happens. I just hope we're healthy at this point of the year, and I hope we put up a fight. I just don't think we're as good as them when it comes to recruiting. I think Drew Aller at this point is a seasoned starter, and he's pretty good. And they have a two-headed monster running back, and they're going to have a stout defense. So probably, hopefully, closer than 13. But I don't think we'll pull out the win. But hopefully, we don't have to worry about being bowl eligible at this point.
Yeah, that'd be nice that the last game of the year against a team like that isn't where you have to make bowl eligibility.
Yeah.
MSU schedule's tough, man. They don't get any breaks really in there,
No.
especially down the stretch. Um,
After our bye
you get
week, it's
Indiana
Rutgers.
early, right?
After our bye
Yeah,
week, it's Rutgers, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, Ohio State, Indiana, Penn State.
yeah. So Indiana's a bit of a,
It should
but
be.
I
We
mean
lost to them last
that
year.
schedule,
Oh, I just skipped Indiana. Look at me.
yeah, you did.
So
I
I'll
mean,
go back to Indiana. That's a win. We played like shit against them last year, and we missed a chip shot field goal. I'm sorry for skipping them, but we got to beat them. Like I said, measuring stick, same as Rutgers. Um, so my bad for skipping, Mr. Sokol. Thanks for the retweet. Sorry, I didn't mean to skip Indiana, but I think we need to win. We need the old brass platoon back. Rival game, technically. We played like shit last year. I hope we come in and show that we're the better team. And I already talked about Penn State, but I don't think we win that one. So we're probably 7-5, 8-4.
and that's above your like baseline, so that makes a lot of sense.
5.5 is
Um,
Vegas right now.
Yeah, 5.5 is Vegas. I think Vegas is just relying on people to be super aggressive with that line, and hopefully MSU doesn't figure out the quarterback situation, because that could be. I mean, Michigan in 2017 had a terrific defense, but they didn't have a quarterback throw for over 1,000 yards. Like they couldn't. They still won, I think, 8 games. You can't win if your quarterback situation in college football isn't above average, obviously. So it'll be interesting how that plays out. MSU always lands on their feet at the quarterback position. It seems they know how to get their guys in good spots.
Yes.
So Michigan, the game, last game of the year, best game of the year.
Did we skip a game for you, or were you at Ohio State?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, I was we did Maryland and at Ohio State.
Okay.
You got to remember, I did 3 at first. we
Right,
only did
right.
2 because
Yep.
we were playing,
Perfect.
not bozos, but
I kind of want to talk a
Lefty
little
boys.
bit, but I'd love to hear your take on this one.
So I think Michigan wins, just straight off the bat. OSU, first off, their fans are
The worst.
crazy.
I hear.
I respect their tenacity, but I don't know how many of them like know or watch other games of football. They love OSU. I'm sure they follow every instance, every minute, every snap. But these guys, like, it's like they aren't aware of what happens in the country of college football almost. So last year, J.J. McCarthy went in there. Now, did he have a great completion percentage? No. Did he have 3 passing touchdowns? Yes. Did he have a rushing touchdown? Yes. Did he have nearly 300 total yards? Yes. In any realm, that's a great, great job by a starting quarterback. First start on the road in the horseshoe, which is a very tough, very healthy environment. And I think this year, OSU's secondary is going to be loaded. I think Michigan has their secondary figured out at this point. Um, Michigan has done a really, really good job keeping everything in front of them, limiting the big plays against OSU, limiting what OSU can do offensively in the run game so that they don't have to cover both. They know, hey, OSU's going to get 60, 70 yards. Let's stop them when they're around the 40, when they get in the 20, where they can't use all that space to their advantage and crunch everything, and let's make big plays. And it's worked out the last 2 years. Michigan has dominated the lines of scrimmage in the second half. In the second half of both games, Michigan has jammed the run down their throats. And people can say, "Oh, well, it's 2 runs." Yeah, okay. I mean,
I feel like
sure.
Ohio State gets
All of
really
OSU's big
pass heavy.
plays against MSU are big play. Like,
Yeah.
if your defense is super uber aggressive, if you're run blitzing and you don't get home, that's what happens. That's who Jim Knowles is. If you look at what he allows defensively, he is Don Brown in that realm of offensive coordinating or defensive coordinating, I apologize, where when you are playing a team that's worse than you kill them. It's 51-7, they can't do anything, they can't move the ball. When you play against teams that are competent, that know how to scheme against you, they can get enough big plays that they can have huge games. His last year at OK State, they had like a top 5 defense in the country, top 10. They played Oklahoma, they played Oklahoma. I think it was Caleb Williams. He averaged like 15.9 yards an attempt. They played 2 other teams that year, and they had quarterbacks averaging 300 plus yards, 10 yards an attempt, because of how aggressive he plays. That there's so many booms and breaks in the secondary because he puts so much pressure on safeties to roll down and all these different coverages. And I just don't think that that's coordinator to stop Michigan. You stop Michigan by forcing them to drive the length of the field and then stopping them in that zone, and also tackles for loss at times instead of being aggressive all the time. You look at Michigan, they had a comeback that went for a touchdown. They had a double move that went for a touchdown. Michigan schemes so well to the defensive. Now, defensive line, I think OSU is going to be really good. I just don't know that secondary. I mean, since the start of time, OSU's had godly secondaries, but since Ryan Day's been there, the secondaries have not been good. I don't know what happens at practice, but they have not been good. They're really high draft picks, but they've not been that skilled. And I just really like how Michigan's played. If you look back at the series, it goes in spurts. It goes in 4 or 5 game spurts where someone controls a decade and then a coaching change happens and then they control the decade. And, I mean, Ryan Day hasn't beat Michigan after he said he was going to hang 100 on them.
Tough look.
And Ryan Day, his offense, when it's third down, he runs a wide delay, back shoulder, tight end rollout pass, right? Like that's that's who he is. He's the schemer. He's going to try to get one guy open specifically, and that's not the mentality that the head coach needs in this game. This is going to be like, it's 3rd and 3, I'm running 2 run plays, and then we're going to get it. I look back at the 2 big plays, Cade Stover, Jalen Harrell covered a wide delay tight end like streak up the seam. Jalen Harrell, an outside linebacker / edge guy, covered their tight end, and then Mike Sainer still in the end zone. Like, you're not putting the ball in Marvin Harrison's hands. You're running one route. That's who the ball's supposed to go to. You're not giving your best players, and it's just like, I think it's a weak mentality to think, I recruit all these guys, let them win, and I just don't think he does it enough.
I think it'll be nice for me because usually we have a tailgate. Like this year, we would be at home, so we had to watch the game at a tailgate, which isn't always the best for us. Last time it was Penn State, it was snowy, so it'd be nice to actually just be able to watch this game, probably a noon kick per usual, and just kind of enjoy a good game. I think it seems like since Ryan Day's been the head coach, they kind of get like really pass heavy against Michigan for some reason. I don't know why or what. Obviously, Ohio State's receivers are great. Don't get me wrong; they're probably top in the country.
No, by far.
But like you got Travion Henderson still. You got, I think his backup's like a big guy. Like, run the ball. It's Big Ten ball in Michigan. You know Michigan's gonna run it. So I don't know why they get so pass heavy and like you said on a 3rd and 3, like you're gonna run the ball, but it seems like they don't do that. And it seems like
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a snowball effect, and it seems like Michigan has had the edge the last 2 years after not even beating them for a long time. So um, yeah, I don't know who's gonna win. I think it'll be a good game. It might decide the East, but definitely a good analysis and got a long ways to go. That's 3-4 months away, which is nuts.
I think OSU will be undefeated by that time, and I think this could be where Michigan might not win the Big Ten, but might still get in the playoff, depending on how what happens with every other conference. I mean, what the tiebreaker comes down to is West Division opponent record
Yep,
by that
that's
point in the
yep.
season,
When we lost to
which
Purdue, it
is
wouldn't have mattered if we
yeah, which
beat.
is just the
Yeah,
most
stupid.
ridiculous thing in the world. Is like
That's not
that's what
points
it comes
for us,
down
not
to.
points against, not
Yeah,
whatever. It's stupid.
it's the teams you played that are pre-scheduled 6 months in or 2 years in advance, 3 years in advance. It's who you play those times, which would most likely be Penn State, by the way,
Yeah. Um.
because Michigan has Nebraska and Minnesota, and so does OSU, I think.
Okay.
But I'm excited. It's gonna be a really fun college football season. Michigan's expected to win the Big Ten for the first time in a really long time, based on odds. I think they're plus 170, and the next is like plus 190 or 200, so not huge favors. But it should be fun. And I mean, Corum came back, Zinter came back, Keegan came back. All these guys came back to win a championship. They're number 2, and it'd be beautiful to see them in the playoff, 12-0. But it's really tough to win 12 games
13.
back-to-back years.
13.
Hmm?
If you want to
Oh
include
yeah,
the
13.
Big Ten championship. Yeah, I mean we're kind of in a different boat. A lot of question marks. I'm so excited. I'm optimistic. I think it could be kind of like 21, where we don't really know what we have and we kind of pop off. But definitely excited. The state's first home game is 15 days away, so it's in my veins right now. But KB's coming over back to Michigan for a little bit in his wedding, so I don't know what we're gonna do next week, but maybe we'll do one together and I'll do one by myself or something like that. And I'll see KB in a couple days here, but we're excited. Anything else you want to say, KB, before we take off here?
Um, one small thing, and then all I want to say is college football is the best by far,
100%
and
agree.
it's not going away. Like as much as the media money rights play a huge part in it, it's us, it's the fans, it's the dedication, it's going to the games, it's the impact that you show up and you give a shit and you listen to two morons talk about college sports who didn't play
Didn't
college
even
level
go
football,
to either school either, which is
didn't go to
something I
either
like to think
school.
about too. I'm a massive fan, and I
Yeah,
just applied too late. So
yep. I mean, it's those things that make this sport so fun, and I just love it. And then with that said, go blue, baby.
go green, KB. Yeah, I'll see you in a couple days, man. Safe travels.
Yep. You have a good.
See you, KB.
See ya.
All right, guys. I just ended the Discord. Peace and love. Have a good one.